Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie. And who knew that Carlton versus North Melbourne would be a game that has almost become a bit of a must-win for Carlton this season. After losing 2 on the bounce, it's become just that, which is very frustrating. Lockie, how are you feeling headed into this clash against the Kangas?
I'm excited, mate. It's just another chance for us to bounce back. You got to be excited about that.
Yeah, 100%. Let's put away the past. Let's forget about the last 2 weeks. Let's time to focus on the next game at hand, and let's take a little bit of a look at North Melbourne. They haven't been great this season. They're sitting second last on the ladder. But more recently, apart from their loss against Sydney on the weekend, they have found a little bit of form. What have you made of their last month, Lockie, and how are you seeing this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, they're an enjoyable team to watch recently. I've found I've enjoyed a lot of those close games. And, you know, I feel like there's, you see parts of the old Carlton in them, like the, 2019 Carlton, maybe. Like their midfield in particular has a lot of guys that are still raw and coming up, but you see good potential. So it's exciting for them. It's an opportunity for us to really put our stamp on it, I think, and show that we're just in a different a different era to where they are. So it's definitely not one that we should be taking lightly, that's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, their form's been better. They beat West Coast, lose to the Pies by a point, lose to Melbourne by 3 points, Doggies by 17, then beat the Gold Coast. Obviously, the last week against Sydney, horrific 79-point loss to the Swans. And interestingly, we find ourselves in the same position the Swans were last week. You know, they were flying, lose to row, form starts to wane. Play North, and all of a sudden things start to be a lot better. You get a big win and your season starts to go around and move towards a positive direction. Now we're in that position. We've lost 2, and weirdly we've got a lot less margin for error, Lockie. Given the ladder predicament, we kind of can't afford this to be another week. Maybe we're now a little bit desperate, like the teams we've come up against. GWS were desperate to win. Dogs desperate to win. Now we're desperate to get a win, to cling on to that second spot and make sure top 4 is ours. And I guess trying to compare us a little bit to Sydney as well, their form was better for a lot longer. We had 5 weeks. They had a lot longer of better football. So we've just got to make sure that we turn this around very quickly. We have to bounce back. And so I've got to ask you now, Lockie, there's 6 games left to play this season. We're in a bit of a slump. How important is it that we do bounce back? Given that if we don't do it now, it's going to be the worst time to fall off, given there's only 6 games left. We're so close to the finish line.
I can't even imagine us sitting here after this game dissecting a loss here, because it just feels like it would be diabolical for our season, considering how close everything is and just the mental part that would go with that as well. So, the blueprint is there. We've played this team already this year in a game that we were really pleased with. We know what we got to do. There's no secrets to this one, but if we don't come away with it, I don't even know what we're going to be talking about.
No excuses this week. I agree with you, Lockie. Let's jump into the blueprint to victory. Let's talk about this team selection. Biggest talking point of last week. Let's nail it this week. Who are your ins and outs and why, Lockie?
I have not thought about this for a goddamn second, but I know that you have. Please lead this off.
Too easy. Well, I'll go through it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. But I'm trying not to be too reactive to the loss to the last 2 weeks. And maybe you can argue and say that I am in doing what I'm about to do. But I just think that 2 weeks in a row, we've been reactive. We've changed and tinkered with everything. So I'm looking back and going, what was the team that played against Geelong, Lockie? What were the things that were working through that period? And let's try to go back to that. So I was looking at, stay with me, I was looking at that Geelong team, and my changes from that team that played would be the following. Williams, we don't know the extent of his injury at time of recording, but I'm going to say he needs a week off regardless. He's an injury-prone player. Give him a week. So Motlop can replace Zach Williams as your goal scoring forward. Then Fantasia injured himself in the VFL. He wasn't in the team anyway, but I'm giving Cunningham that role, the high half forward, maybe go on the wing if you need to. Cunningham's been playing some good footy in the twos. That'd be my switch for a Fantasia in the Geelong game. And then the final spot would be Chera is the sub over Corey Durden. Those would be my changes from Geelong's team to now. On paper, I would say that all except maybe the Motlop Williams would probably be an upgrade. How would you see those changes from, I guess, Geelong game to this one?
Wow. You have shocked me there. So, I mean, I need to make sure I'm following this. So that you're saying that you would be bringing Cunningham this week into this team?
Absolutely. Wow. And then let me go further and explain it to you by actually looking at the team that played on the weekend and showing the changes from that, because that will maybe make things a little bit clearer. But I at least wanted to show you where my basis was coming from and why those changes will just continue to look so great. Lockie. All right. Straight away, Pitternet comes out of the team. In comes George Hewitt. Simple change. Back to the one ruck system. I want Hewitt in my midfield. I think that works beautifully. Cottrell has been playing poor since coming back into the squad. We need, if you want someone to play that high half forward role, it's Cunningham. 2 weeks in a row, he's looked really good at VFL level. He's classy with ball in hand, uses it well, bit more speed. Let Cottrell find his form. Cunningham's had to do it.
Yep.
So I think he's earned it. Then, again, Williams, I'm saying he's injured, so I'm bringing in Motlop as a replacement. And then I'm hoping that McGovern, if fit, comes in for Marchbank. If not, I think you just have to play Marchbank. There's no other change you can kind of make there. And then I'm making Kennedy. I'm bringing him in. He's into the starting 22, and Chera moves to the sub. Those are my changes. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, it's a lot of changes, but I don't think it is necessarily reactive. I think a lot of those are based on things that we've seen over a stretch now. And yeah, I mean, that's an exciting team to be rolling out there on paper, no doubt about that. Chera sub is obviously that's a hot one, just considering who he is. But it's all about balance, and it's all about, I guess, rewarding the guys that are playing well, right?
Go back to Cripps, TDK, Walsh, Hewitt, Kennedy in the midfield. Really, there isn't a lot of change for me. It looks like a lot, but it's more correcting things. Like Hewitt for Pitto, it should have already been the case for a while. Gov for Marchbank, if that happens, if he's fit, that's not really a change at all. The Williams Motlop one is kind of injury dependent. So really, it's just tweaking a few things to then make Cunningham in for Cottrell is kind of the only real change that I'm seeing from it. But it'll be very interesting to know who people want in, who people want out. One bad game from Boyd. I'm not going to change that too much. I'm not going to worry. Give him one more week because his form's been good apart from that. But let us know your team changes in the comments on Blue Abroad on YouTube and at the socials, Navy Blue Corner. Lockie, do you have any other thoughts on team selection this week?
I guess the only devil's advocate thing I was going to mention, which I think I already know the answer, but Tristan Cherry is your man, I know, and maybe one of the guys you'd look at as being a threat, but that doesn't affect your thinking on teams.
See, this would have been the week out of the two I would have played the dual rucks. However, I don't know. I just want to go back to what was working. That's kind of my thoughts on this.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, and if Cherry dominates the ruck battle, well, I'm hoping that the midfield balance can hopefully sort other things out. Or George Hewitt can hopefully make up for everything else. On the weekend against North, when Pitternet was in there, midfield looked worse in my eyes. The way we were scored against was worse when he was in there. Let's revert back to what we know and what was gelling. That's kind of my basis of everything this week.
Yeah, no, I like it. I'm in agreement.
Yes. So what do you want to see this week, Lockie? I feel like there's a million things that you could add to this and say, I want to see this week, but what are your keys to winning, really?
Well, I guess the overarching thing is, like I said before, we've played this team this season at this ground. The blueprint is there, and the things that I remember from that game are a strong midfield performance, and our keys up forward, punishing an inexperienced small defense. And I don't see a reason why we can't do that. Charlie, debate all you want on his form and those kind of things, but I think he can be having more impact on us winning. Harry is in tremendous form. If you align those things and our midfield comes up as well, I mean, why can't it be a 10-goal win?
It's good rationale. I mean, the only sort of issue there is we came up against a very depleted backline against the Doggies and couldn't exploit that.
True.
But you just have to do it this week. You have to find ways to get it done. I like that. It's something that needs to happen. Back it in. One of mine kind of goes and ties into that. It's just front half pressure. I mean, 2 weeks in a row, we've been horrendous in this space. We're number one in the comp for tackles inside 50, Lockie. Yet over the last 2 weeks, we've registered 4 against GWS, 5 against the Dogs. Before those 2 games, to put this in perspective, before those 2 games, we averaged 14 inside 50 tackles a game.
Crazy.
When you take those 2 games out of it. 4 and 5 on the bounce. You can't be doing that. And when you look back and reflect on the best game we've played this season against Geelong was 22. 22 tackles inside 50.
Crazy.
We're a front half pressure team where pressure and contest, go back to it. Better entry inside 50. Pen the ball inside there. Repeat entries. Repeat pressure. You'll get goals. And I'm sure Charlie and Harry will absolutely feast off that.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's such a eye test difference in these past few weeks, isn't it? Compared to our peak. So that's a great one.
Well, do you have any other keys to what you want to see this week, Lockie?
I mean, I guess I focus more on the key forwards in my last bit. So I'll just say the midfield part because that's been the bit that stood out to me, at least, from the last couple of losses where we're just not firing together. There's and again, you can question whether it's personnel because there's times where we would say that Cripps, Walsh, and Chera are the 3 guys that we want as those main three in the mid. But right now, the synergy just isn't there offensively and defensively. So what better chance than this for us to be here in a week talking about how it's back and we've got that full confidence back in the mids.
Mate, could not agree more. That was mine. I said the onus is on the midfield this week. It's where it all starts. It's where our best players are. Cripps has been fantastic. He needs support, though. Walsh needs to dig in. Chera, if he's selected, my God, I just need more from him. And, I don't want to single out a player like Chera. At least I feel like I'm allowed to bash him almost more than anyone else because I've probably been his biggest advocate since he came across from Freo. I've been one of the biggest pro Chera voices out there. Yep. But I think the criticism on him at the moment is pretty fair and pretty level. Our best midfield this season has not had him in it, and his form since returning just hasn't been there. I just want more from him. Right. I need the midfield to sort this out. And we're coming up against a team in North Melbourne that while they're not the best football team of all time, clearly sitting in second last, they are the number 2 team in centre clearances. We're number 1. So that clearly shows you that their midfield is key to them winning games of football. And knowing that that's been the thorn in our side these last 2 games, it's clear that we need a win there. You know, after last week, we conceded 50 points from stoppage, negative 20 differential, conceded 26-6 in centre bounces, negative 20 differential there. We just have to be at our best. We're coming up against guys like Wardlaw, LDU, Sheasel, Powell, Simpkin. It's a strong midfield for them, and it's key to shutting it down, really. And you look at Cherry, like you brought up, he actually led the clearances in their game against Sydney. So he's another one that we need to stop around the ground and around the contests. And looking at the stats from the last game, you know, Sydney were able to demolish North Melbourne, yet they matched each other at the centre clearances. North only lost stoppage clearances by 4. North led contested possessions by 3. They lost the uncontested by 61. I think that's the kind of key to this. Clearly, North can match it in the coalface. It's just about being able to control the ball and be more efficient with ball in hand. do that, and I think you've got the victory.
Mm-hmm. Would you like a question without warning? Well, I guess this
Absolutely.
is your warning.
Go for it.
Chincotta job. You'd like him to do a
Oh.
job this week, you think?
I think so. I didn't mind at stages when he got a little bit more around the ball on the weekend, particularly in the last quarter. He was probably one of those players, winning that tough contested ball, trying to get us to go forward. I probably haven't thought about the matchup too much at this stage.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it could be a guy weirdly like Sheasel. I know Wardlaw and LDU seem the obvious one, but Sheasel this last month has been electric in the way he's moved outside of the stoppages. This could be a good shutdown role like he did, against Port Adelaide, against Essendon. It seems like that could be the go this week.
Yeah, he's the one that jumps out to me. It'll be interesting to see if Fisher comes back in and where that means the magnets go. But yeah, I like the sound of that. Well answered.
Yeah, and then probably the other big thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is just the fixture chat. It's something we always try to revolve back onto at stages throughout the season, and we've lost 6 games this year. We're tied on points with Geelong, Brisbane, and Essendon on the ladder. Fremantle are a draw behind us. Only one win separates us from GWS, Melbourne, and Port. Brisbane trail us by 1 win and 1 draw. That's just how tight the ladder is right now. And we kind of wasted the last 2 weeks with a bit of opportunity to extend that gap. And it's all about what happens from now to the end of the season. So the next 3 fixtures, Lockie, we've got North, we've got Port at home, and then Collingwood. The Dogs loss was one that we both would have gone into it saying we can't drop this one, can't afford to do it. Does that mean we need to go 3-0 in our next 3 fixtures? What's the pass mark if not?
It feels like some kind of law to me that when there's a 3 games ahead of us, that 3 is what we want and 2 is potentially what we'd take. I mean, for me, you look at Port and we beat them earlier in the year on their turf. It's very hard to beat good teams twice. And the same goes with Collingwood. They beat us, so you'd hope that we can get on top of them for this one.
Yeah, having now lost 6 games, it's so tight. Historically, you don't make top 4 if you lose more than 7. So we kind of can only afford to lose 1 for the rest of the season. That feels, it worries me a little bit. However, everyone seems to lose each and every week at the moment. So maybe you'll find this season is a little bit different given how tight that top 8 is. But we want to finish not just top 4, but top 2, which means we've just got to start banking those wins. Looking at those fixtures, we need to beat North. There's just no excuse for not being able to do it. They're second bottom at the moment, Lockie. You got to make do with them. And then Port at home, we beat them away when we maybe didn't expect to do it. So you just have to beat them at home. They historically, I guess in this season, away from Adelaide haven't been amazing. We just got to get the dub. And then Collingwood, they're not in great form. They've got injuries. Who knows? By the time we play them, half their team will probably be back. It's tracking to be Pendle's 400th game as well.
I know. It's disgusting,
so,
isn't it?
I mean, that just doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence on just how big that game's going to be. But again, we want to win the premiership this year. We're not just talking about having a nice finals run like last season. These are teams we need to beat. Collingwood right now are getting spoken about a team that may not make the top 8. There's no excuses to not go 3-0. And then in the last 3, that's when you have to keep going strength to strength. We've lost 2 in a row. Form is waning slightly. 6 games to go. You just got to turn it around now and start playing your best football to give us the best chance. So we're not wasting a season, Lockie.
It's true. Only having to leave Melbourne once until the finals is a really nice thing as well. Like our destiny is just so in our own hands, isn't it? Like 2 years ago, we were relying on other teams winning and losing to see where we ended up. And right now, all we've got to do is play our best footy. And realistically, our best footy means that we don't lose the rest of the home and away season.
Yeah, no, 100%. And all these fixtures are so winnable. The other 3 past that are what? Hawthorn, St Kilda, and West Coast. Definitely 2 of those feel like easier wins. It's the Hawthorn one with the way they're playing right now that is a little bit more difficult. But again, we think we're a top 2 side in this competition. Exactly. 2-3 weeks ago, we were saying that we're a premiership contender. We're the only team that can beat Sydney. That's what everyone was saying. And while I still believe there's some other teams that can compete for that final premiership, we should not be dropping out of that conversation at all just off 2 bad weeks. We need to be that team that goes out there and gets that form. And it just weirdly, as bad as those last 2 games have been, it feels like it's such an easy fix, that there's just a few things that need to be tweaked and we turn it around. And it's that confidence that you spoke about in our Doggies review game, where in isolation, when you review the loss, there's so many bad areas, so many things that aren't working for us. But there's so much good in this team. I mean, what are the little things that are giving you that kind of confidence right now that we can turn it around against a team like obviously North Melbourne, but then it's not just about beating a team second bottom. It's about going on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the trajectory I think that we've seen in this whole rebuild in the Voss era in this season. Hopefully we're going to be putting one of our healthiest, maybe our best team of the 21st century out there on the weekend.
Yeah, genuinely.
Potentially. Like, how can you not have confidence that that team can turn it around?
It's just about, maybe we've tinkered with it and maybe we're about to find out what is finally working. But I mean, it's going to be very interesting, Lockie. I'm very excited for this week. Fingers crossed. This is the week we turn it all around. Sydney's just done it. It's time for us to do it against North Melbourne. What a better time to play a second bottom team. It's about time we're not playing someone fighting for the 8. Feels like it's been that way all season, Lockie. I'm very excited about this week. Let us know your thoughts on everything we've covered. Who's coming in this week for the selection? Who is making way? What are the keys to the winning? What do you want to see? And what is your pass mark for the next 3 fixtures? Just before we wrap this up, we've got to jump into the Grill the Corner segment now. Basically, as soon as Lockie and I ended the recording for this episode, I realized that we completely forgot this segment, and there's no way that I am going to skip it this week. So, look, it'll just be me to run through the listener questions, but there's some absolute gems in there. So let's get into it. The first one comes in from Beth Waters, who asks, who do you think Chincotta will tag this week? Now, we somewhat covered this talking a bit about team selection, and it's interesting. There's been a bit more chatter over the last week or two, I guess, around Chincotta, his role, where we see the tag going, and the more our midfield is struggling a little bit, we seem to be conceding a lot from those centre bounces, from stoppages. Do we need to evolve this midfield? Do we need to go past the tag? Is that potentially hurting the way we play? Those are questions that I'll leave to Michael Voss. I'll leave to the smarter coaches that will understand the structures and what we need to get out of it a little bit more. But looking at Chincotta from a who do I want to take out of this game from North Melbourne, who is their sort of key player? I think it has to be Harry Sheezel at the moment. I know they've got some big body midfielders, LDUs in there. George Wardlaw can really impact the game by brute force, but Sheezel seems to be that player on the outside that's just so classy, can create so much for them. And particularly if he does move, back into that halfback position at stages throughout the game, that's a lot of their run and drive. That's their run and carry. He's the one that can start things like a Bailey Dale did last week against us. So for me, I think that's probably the best matchup. We saw what he did against Butters and a guy like Zach Merritt, someone that, I guess when you're looking at the player type, it's not just that inside bull. It's one of the more important creative flair players from the opposition. That's what I see Harry Sheezel this week. Maybe there's scope for him to move back into that forward line and play a defensive role on another halfback if North Melbourne get off the chain in that position throughout the game, maybe go on a bit more of an intercept marker. But right now I'm going Harry Sheezel. I think that makes the most sense, but I'm very interested to know what everyone thinks in the comments below here on YouTube or on the socials at Navy Blue Corner. Let me know who is Chincotta tagging this week. And the next question comes in from the great Ethan, who asks, is this the game we see Charlie go on a tear, or is it a Mackay show again this week? And great question. I'm very hopeful that this is the week where our key forwards completely get off the chain. We're all kind of licking our lips last week thinking, well, okay, Doggies undermanned. It's Buku Kamis and Rory Lobb as their main key defenders. Cofield is like the third tallest, so they're not going to have that third interceptor coming across. If we can just get that clean entry inside 50, get enough of them, get that supply to our key tools, then we're going to go ballistic and Charlie's going to absolutely explode. Now he kicks, 3-7, I believe it was, by the end. So there was still opportunity for Charlie to have that 6-7 goal game that we saw seemingly so often last year that he hasn't been able to replicate in 2024. Confident we can get that hopefully this week, because to not be too rude to North Melbourne, their key defensive stocks aren't amazing. I know Charlie Combin's had a really good year. He's almost come out of nowhere in that defensive side. Aiden Core, Callan Dawson, Toby Pink. These are guys that don't inspire me with a ridiculous amount of confidence as, I guess if I'm a North Melbourne fan, in trying to quell the two best key forwards in the game in Charlie and Harry. Part of me thinks maybe it's both that go big this week and both kick 5 or 6. It feels like this could be the game that really breaks out, and knowing that the talk keeps building around a guy like Charlie, we know that Harry's in great form. He continually applies himself each and every week, and he's getting that result on the scoreboard. The question marks and that spotlight has really shone on Charlie Curnow. He's still leading the Coleman, but everyone's starting to investigate his game a little bit more and think, is there more that needs to be done? Is he out of form? The speculation and the bullshit of he only gets his goals from free kicks will always rear its head. He might be hearing this, and he might be thinking that it's about time I have that big game and I prove the doubters wrong. Even if I don't need to, why not go big and have a big week? Threatened to do it last week with some limited, I guess, quality chances. Give him the ball in the right spots, and why not? Why can't this be the week this year that Charlie goes absolutely bang, kicks 7 or 8? That's where I'd be putting my money this week. The next question comes in from Darren Hodge, and I like this take. Really enjoy this one. He says, how did Mitch McGovern silently become our most important player? And look, I'll be honest, I still think it's Wiedering, and there's probably a few I would have before McGovern. However, we don't really have that exact replacement for Mitch McGovern and what he brings to this team in defense, not only with his defensive intercepts, but it's just his ball movement and how vital it seems Mitch McGovern is to the way we move the ball outside of from D50 and get our ball movement going. When he isn't in this side, we seem to get penned in deep. We can't get that ball out. Our ball movement, it's slow, it's stifled. It goes back to that kick to the half forward line, wide to the boundary, and then just long down the line. There isn't this quickness and quick release, I think, with a Mitch McGovern when he's not there. No one can kind of replicate that. Marchbank comes in to replace him personnel-wise, doesn't necessarily have that, and maybe that will build with his second week back at AFL level, but he's definitely not the player by foot and that distribution that Mitch McGovern gives you. So it's crazy to think a couple of years ago, we were all questioning and saying, well, he's not that forward. He doesn't seem to be that third tall. Can he go into defense? Question marks on whether he was even able to do that. Not only has he got those defensive capabilities, but it's what he does with ball in hand that's so important. No one else can replicate that. So yeah, is he top 5 most important players for us and how we play? I guess every time he's not in the team, it looks that way. Let me know what you think of Mitch McGovern and how important and integral he is to the way we move the ball. And if he doesn't get up this week, he's basically a test to play. Who takes over for him? And doesn't necessarily mean that that's Marchbank, but how do we, in his absence, go about getting that ball movement going for us? Is it about trying to release a guy like Saad, get the ball in the hands of a guy like Jordan Boyd a lot more? What do we need to do to ensure that we can actually rebound, move that ball quickly, and we're not seeing that long down the line kick for the whole game? Let us know in the comments. And the last question comes from the great man, as always, Timmy Dub, and he says, looking at team stats, I was surprised that North Melbourne are second on centre bounce clearances, only behind us. And yeah, I was surprised when I saw that as well. I thought, okay, every single week I like to look at the team stats, look at the opposition, and just see what their strengths and weaknesses are. And I could not believe that North Melbourne was second in this stat. It's absolutely wild. And he goes on to ask, which 4 players give us the best chance of winning the centre bounce clearance? And I mean, this is the hot button topic. This is the big question. Midfield struggling. We're conceding a lot from stoppage, from centre bounces. It's a leaky area. Part of me thinks this is a really easy fix. How we are setting up at stoppages is surely really simple. Really simple. We've shown previously that this is not a problem for us, that it's actually a strength. Teams have maybe gone to work at trying to exploit the way we do things and minimize it, minimize the damage that Carlton can produce. Have we tinkered with things a little bit and personnel-wise? Potentially it's not gone our way. The coaches will be hard at work on this, and I'm very hopeful that this can be a really quick turnaround, and the results will, if we can just be a little bit better, like 5% better at defending clearances and stoppages, well, it's going to go a long way. That's 3, 4, 5 goals stopped immediately every single game. You do that, hashtag 75 comes back in place. Which 4 players give us the best chance? Well, it's De Koning and Ruck, definitely. It's Cripper. And then it kind of really opens up. It really opens up. We've seen what Walsh and Chera do as a combination. And is that the right combination? Is it too similar a player? Do we need a Kennedy in there or a George Hewitt? Now, a guy like this, way we need Pommy to phone him in straight away. He will be the one that will be doing the deep dives on this and know statistically the best 4 combination for center bounces as far as percentage of wins. I don't have that on the top of my head, so I'm going off gut feel from what I see. And to jump with De Koning and Cripper, I think it's Hewitt and Walsh. That's probably where I'm situated. I love Hewitt in there. His little blocks, his physicality. And what I've noticed that we've struggled the last 2 weeks when there has been that pressure around the contest, we've gone back to that fumbling nature we saw earlier in the season when we were struggling in this area. Guy like George Hewitt, he doesn't fumble. He's clean in those pickups. Saw it in the VFL last week. I know it's a different level, but we know George does it each and every time. I harp back to that Essendon game where I thought Walsh was down. I thought Cripper wasn't there for the whole game. We needed a midfielder to step up and kind of level things for us. That was George Hewitt. And I think he does that at those center bounces, being the tough guy that can, when the ball's on the ground and we need someone to fling a handball out, love seeing it being George Hewitt into the hands of a Cripps, into a Walsh, and Walsh streaming inside 50. That's a picture I absolutely love to see. So those would probably be my 4. Very interested, though, to know what others think and also what the stats say. If anyone can find out for me, Pommy, if you're listening, you got to give me the stats on this one. Who are the top 4 players for Carlton that give us the best chance of winning center clearances? If anyone knows, drop it in the comments. Let me know on the socials at Navy Blue Corner. And just before we wrap up this episode, there was really just one more thing I wanted to cover. I know it's been mentioned a little bit in this episode, but it almost needs its own little segment. And that's just that there's just no need to panic right now. I know we've just come off the back of 2 really poor losses, 2 really bad performances, and the ladder just has become really, really tight. There's not a lot of games to go. And there is this little bit of worry. The pressure feels like it's building a little bit. But reflecting and looking just 2 or 3 weeks ago, everything was perfect. Our midfield was the best that it's been all season, if not in my lifetime. We were lauding how well the ball movement was. Transition work was the best it's been. We were defending the ground so well. We were nailing that hashtag 75 week in, week out. So clearly for me, we can get it right. These boys know how to do it, and they've shown it. There is a tangible component to them getting this right. And it was only 2-3 weeks ago that they were at that point. So yes, there is no need to panic right now. However, in saying that, to fence it, I guess, a little bit, there is this sense of finality around things right now. The end of the season is nearing. We've only got 6 games left of the regular season. That is not a lot of time to fix things, to turn things around. You can't wait for it to be 6 weeks. It has to be now. It has to be this week, next week, to sort these issues. 6 games left. We need to win at least 5, if not all 6 of these to cement top 4, to cement that top 2 position so we get that home prelim and the best opportunity to win the flag in 2024. So yes, there is this finality around it, and that's driving, I guess, a little bit of the pressure about this, because if we don't start to fix these issues in the coming weeks, then is there that mental component? Do we start dropping out of the top 4? Is there pressure to drop out of the 8? That can build, but don't stress. Don't panic. Don't worry about that until we get to that situation. And I don't think that this team and these boys will let them get to that point, because 2-3 weeks ago, we were the best team in the comp. That doesn't disappear. That's clearly still there. And right now, when you're looking and analyzing all the things that are going wrong for us right now, they seem like such easy fixes. A few little tweaks at the selection table, a few little tweaks structurally in how we're lining up on the ground at stoppages, of how we're bringing a little bit more pressure, a little bit more intensity around the ground for 4 quarters. Fix these tiny, tiny, minuscule little things, and we'll be back to that form that we saw against Geelong, that we saw against Port. Those kind of games got us excited. And don't you worry, we're going to absolutely turn this around. So that is going to wrap up the episode this week. Let me know how you're feeling. Are you starting to panic? Are you starting to get worried? Or are you a bit more calmer like I am at this stage, knowing that if anyone can get it done, it's these boys. They've proven it to me that they can turn things around pretty quickly, and I'm definitely going to back them in. So let me know all your thoughts on everything we've covered in this episode in the comments below here on Blue Abroad. If you've liked the video, chuck it a like. Make sure you subscribe to BA to get all your Carlton content. There's so much each and every day from so many great content creators. And of course, Terry leading the ship and just absolutely dominating the Carlton content space. And if you want more from us, we are now dropping our match review episodes Sunday, Monday night, one of the two, depending on what the fixture does for us, on our own YouTube channel here on YouTube. Links are in the description, in the show notes. And then if you are listening to this in audio form, it's going to be on your Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this one right now. Make sure you follow, and your episodes are just going to load up as soon as we have them there for you. But that is going to wrap this episode up. The Blues are going to bounce back and absolutely slaughter North Melbourne. Cannot wait to be back here next week and talk about it all. Up the bloody baggers. See you guys next time.